This, my friends, is the B tier. We're not talking about Pioneer or Marantz or Sansui.
You're a very gifted B-team player.
We're talking about the people's hi-fi. These aren't the prom queens. However, if you had one in your car or in your bedroom, at least your friends aren't going to make fun of you. One of them is gone. One of them gave up their dreams and settled into a boring day job. And the other one, well, I think they're positioned to make a bit of a comeback. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, let's talk about the rise, the fall, and maybe the rise again of some of your favorite B-tier hi-fi brands.
Save 47% on this complete Kenwood system. 86-watt AM/FM stereo receiver with digital frequency readout, a metal-capable Dolby cassette recorder, belt drive turntable, and these 12-inch three-way speakers now just $599.
Kenwood! They didn't start out as Kenwood. They started out like almost every other brand we talk about. In 1946, right after the war, a tiny outfit called Kasuga Radio Company was founded. They started building ham radios and tube amps, and they began exporting them all the way back in the 50s. And they realized Kasuga didn't really scream modern cool, and they needed to get a new name. How did they come up with it? Well, I'm glad you asked. They thought Ken was a common, very cool American name, and Wood stands for sturdy. And that's about how much thought they put into it. Ken Wood. That's it. No legend, no mountain, no nothing. Kenwood. But it worked, and in the 1960s, the name stuck. And Kenwood became Japan's global symbol of hi-fi that just works. Reliable and affordable. However, reliability only gets you so far when everybody else is prettier and has a lot more meters. As far as the B tier goes, Kenwood was probably the top of the B tier. They weren't as fancy as Marantz, not as showy as Pioneer, and not as spiritual as Sansui. They were solid though, and kind of spectacular in its own quiet way. And then came the Model 9G, a 24-inch wide behemoth that laughs at a normal hi-fi rack. You don't so much place the Model 9G, you commit to it. You build your house around it. It's gorgeous. It has a whole bunch of chrome. It has VU meters and tons of power. The KR9400 and the KA7100 were both built like tanks and had enough wattage to heat your garage. And if you drop one down the stairs, it's going to stand up and apologize to you for damaging your stairs. And it's going to play music. Even their 1980s speakers, which I owned a pair of, some of them had passive radiators. Now, maybe their enclosures felt like surplus IKEA panels, but to me, this sounded awesome. However, when the digital age rolled in with lightweight plastic and surround sound menus, Kenwood's heavy-duty charm started to feel a bit dated. A beautiful analog dinosaur. But even dinosaurs have to evolve, or go extinct because a giant asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula.
I'm Scott Noon. I'm the CEO of Audio Advice. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 36 years old.
And I'm Randy, I'm the Cheap Audio Man, and my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer this year. That's why I'm thrilled to be teaming up with Audio Advice to support this wonderful cause.
We're raising money for families with mothers battling cancer through the Helene Foundation. You'll see a link in the description that goes to a raffle page where we have tens of thousands of dollars of really cool headphones, speakers, projectors, you name it. And then Randy and I are going to do a live stream on October 30th where we're going to give it all away.
The sad reality is that we all know someone that has battled breast cancer, and this is your opportunity to make an impact on real people's lives. Whether you can give a little or a lot, you're going to make a difference.
Kenwood Exelon delivers sound excellence. Listen to the future with Kenwood in-dash CD players at $79 and Exelon models starting at $139.
By the late 1990s, Kenwood was struggling. Pioneer, Sony, Yamaha were all flooding the shelves. Home theater was kind of the norm now. Kenwood tried to keep up, but they just couldn't compete. And in 2008, they merged with JVC.
Well, that's what the merger is.
I guess the thought process is if you take two B-tier companies that are struggling and you put them together, maybe you'll have one viable company. Well, that wasn't the case. All the Kenwood gear that used to live in your living room disappeared like a phantom. However, they kept making car stereo stuff. You can actually buy a Kenwood car stereo today. They also make police radios. I have fond memories of Kenwood. It didn't seem to me like they tried to be anything that they weren't, which is a solid B-tier hi-fi company.
You're a very gifted B-team player.
But during the heyday of Kenwood, there was another brand that was chasing the dream of making hi-fi for everyone. Aiwa.
The Aiwa double tape deck.
I have a hard time saying that. They started small, very small. They were founded in 1951 as Aiko Denki Sangyo, and they built microphones. However, in 1964, they launched one of Japan's first cassette recorders, the TP-707. And by 1968, the TP-R-101. And it was one of Japan's first real boomboxes. Through the 70s and 80s, Aiwa kind of went everywhere. If you didn't own one, your friend owned one, or your friend's older brother owned one. So if you owned one, please put it in the comments. I want to hear about it. Bedrooms, dorms, kitchens, all powered by Aiwa boomboxes. They were made out of plastic, but somehow they lasted forever. It was that good 70s and 80s plastic. They also employed tens of thousands of people worldwide and kind of made affordable cool. They were the people's brand, the brand that you could actually afford. But when you're the people's champ, there's always a corporate bully waiting in the wings, and you'll never guess who that corporate bully was. That's right, it was Sony.
The Sony people might not be our biggest problem.
Aiwa's success made them a bit reckless, and they started making everything. TVs, VCRs, all-in-one stereos. Basically anything with a power cord. And manufacturing spread across Asia. They weren't too particular about who was making their product. Then in the 90s, well, there were cheap Chinese and Korean imports. The yen was super strong. Sony was breathing down their neck. And by 2001, sales had declined and they had to lay off half their workforce. And then Sony strolled in and was like, hey, we'll buy you, we'll fix you, and make you cool again. Translation, we'll steal your name and take your profits. And that is pretty much what Sony did. In 2008, Sony just shut down Aiwa. No press release, no ceremony. One day they were here, the next day they weren't. However, even though Sony just shut it down, the ghost of Aiwa didn't want to move on. Around 2017, Tuwada Audio was one of Aiwa's former suppliers, bought the name back from Sony. They relaunched in Japan with small runs of speakers and little tiny microsystems that looked like they were straight out of 1985, leaning 100% into nostalgia. And while it's not the Aiwa we grew up with, it's kind of poetic in a way. A local company resurrecting the people's hi-fi. They prove that great sound doesn't require the same amount as a mortgage payment. And that's why today that Aiwa logo still makes people smile. But there's another company, one that you all know, that lost its way a little bit, but seems to be clawing its way back from the cliff. And I think could be a big player in hi-fi.
Onkyo kara.
Onkyo began in 1946 out of Osaka, Japan. Birthed by the same industrial storm that had Yamaha making pianos, Kenwood making radios, Onkyo's name means sound harmony, not Kenwood. And while everybody else was making radios that looked like furniture, Onkyo took a different approach. It looked like a little laboratory that played music. Clean, no flashy lights. But sometime around the late 90s, Onkyo figured, hey, 2 speakers just isn't enough. Onkyo products started coming with Dolby, DTS, HDMI. Onkyo products had more labels on them than a NASCAR suit. They dove head first into home theater. And they were pretty good at home theater, but they were complicated. Kind of felt like you're setting up a satellite dish just to watch The Matrix. They made stuff like the TX and R series, which I have owned 3 of them. Each year, they would get more complicated and somehow lighter and more expensive. And apparently this home theater thing was quite competitive and their profits kept getting smaller and smaller. And nobody was thinking about Onkyo in regards to 2-channel music. It was all home theater. Kind of felt like they forgot about music altogether. By 2021, the bills caught up and, well, Onkyo was not doing well financially. They filed for bankruptcy in 2022. Most people assumed it was over. It wasn't. Sharp and Vox came to the rescue and quietly rebooted the brand. And something kind of special happened. Onkyo went back to 2-channel with meters on it, and they are gorgeous. I think they're getting released this year, maybe this month. Anyway, there's new integrated amps coming, new power amps coming, I think a new CD player coming, and it doesn't have Dolby Digital stamped all over it. It feels like the old Onkyo. And after years of chasing surround sound, they're coming back to stereo. And that is a comeback story that I didn't see happening. Kenwood, Aiwa, Onkyo, the people's brands.
You're a very gifted B-team player.
I love them. I feel like they were built for us. Yeah, they stumbled. Yeah, they got bought. Yeah, some of them went through bankruptcy. But not all is lost, because Onkyo is still here. They're still making moves. And I think they're positioned for a huge comeback, because it seems like the future of hi-fi looks a lot like the past. And I think Onkyo got the memo. So maybe the story isn't about something that we lost, it's about something that's coming back. A hi-fi shift, if you will. Going back to what's important. Simpler, 2-channel, well-built, visually stunning. Because I feel like either you go back to what you were good at in the beginning, or you die. Because companies come and go. Some end up living in cars, while others, against all reason, crawl back into your living room. Thankfully, remember where they came from, and have the courage to go back to it. If you like this video, you got to check out my video about Yamaha. It's bananas. The guy that started it was the son of a samurai. I'll put another one up here about the history of Macintosh. Thank you so much for watching.
The Aiwa double tape deck.
Back in that bag again. Whoa, whoa, yeah, yeah. Hey. Back in that, yeah. Tell them to watch it. Now I ain't talking my pockets, just know we ain't running out the way that we stock it. If I got it, you got it. If I call it, she slide and tell her to mop it. Yeah, I got that doing.